Have you ever been lying in bed, scrolling on your phone, and you know you should stop, but you don't? Then one night, you leave your phone charging across the room. You get into bed, your hand instinctively reaches for the nightstand, and finds nothing but cool, empty wood. You see the phone, glowing faintly by the door. You pause, and in that tiny pause, a thought appears. I'm not getting up for that. The urge doesn't just fade, it completely evaporates. You roll over and fall asleep. That small moment of victory wasn't won with iron willpower. It was won with about 10 feet of distance. It was won with friction. This is what we're talking about today. It's the simple, almost laughably lazy principle that tiny obstacles, little speed bumps in our path, are often more powerful than our best intentions. Think about the cookies you moved to the highest shelf, making them just enough of a hassle to grab that the late-night craving just pops like a bubble. We tell ourselves we need more motivation, more discipline, more grit. But what if we just need a slightly worse shortcut for the bad habit and a slightly better one for the good? Today, we're exploring the speed bump effect. How adding a few seconds of friction can completely derail our brain's autopilot and, weirdly, make our lives better. So why does a 10-second delay feel like building a brick wall? It comes down to two deep-seated principles in our brain's operating system: present bias and effort aversion. Our brains evolved in an environment where conserving energy was critical for survival. A calorie saved was a calorie you could use to run from a predator later. So, our brains are exquisitely programmed to follow the path of least resistance. They are lazy on purpose. This ancient software is still running our lives today. When faced with a choice, it heavily overvalues immediate ease and undervalues future rewards. That future reward, like feeling well-rested tomorrow, feels abstract. But the effort of getting out of your warm bed right now feels intensely, immediately real. That tiny bit of friction is a cost your brain wants to avoid paying. You might think, sure, this works for cookies and phones, but does it matter for big things? Absolutely. Let's look at retirement savings. In 2001, economists Brigitte Madrian and Dennis Shea looked at a company's 401k plan. The old way was opt-in. To save for retirement, you had to get a form from HR, figure it out, fill it in, and turn it back in. A series of small speed bumps. Under this system, just under half the employees participated. Then, the company flipped the switch. New employees were automatically enrolled. They would start saving a small percentage of their paycheck by default. If they wanted to stop, they could. They just had to get a form, fill it out, and turn it in. They added a speed bump to the other path. The result? Participation shot up from 49% to 86%. Same people, same jobs, same desire to retire comfortably. The only thing that changed was the path of least resistance. Doing nothing now led to a richer future. The power of defaults gets even more profound when we look at organ donation. In a landmark 2003 study in the journal Science, researchers Eric Johnson and Dan Goldstein compared European countries with different policies. In countries like Germany, they used an opt-in system. You are not a donor unless you take the deliberate step of signing up. There, donation consent rates hovered around 12%. But right next door, in Austria, they used an opt-out system. Everyone is considered a donor by default, unless they take the deliberate step to remove their name from the list. The consent rate in Austria? 99%. Think about that. These are neighboring cultures with similar values. The difference between 12% and 99%? A difference of thousands of lives saved, came down to the friction of a single pre-checked box. Friction doesn't just have to be a default setting. It can also be time. Our brains behave very differently in a hot state, a moment of intense anger, fear, or despair, than in a cold state of calm reflection. In a hot state, the urge for immediate action can be overwhelming. A 2017 national study by Michael Luca and his colleagues found that mandatory waiting periods for handgun purchases were associated with a 17% reduction in gun homicides. This kind of friction doesn't forbid the purchase. It simply inserts a cooling-off period, a speed bump of time, between the intense impulse and the final action. It gives the calm, cold-state brain a chance to get back in the driver's seat. That small delay, that forced pause, can be just enough for a crisis to de-escalate. Finally, let's look at the grocery store checkout. After a long shop, you're tired. Your decision-making energy is depleted. This is when you're most vulnerable to impulse buys. For decades, retailers took advantage of this by lining the checkout with a gauntlet of candy and sweets. But what happens when you remove that temptation? A 2018 study of major UK supermarkets that did just that found a significant change. Shortly after the policy took effect, sales of impulse-sized confectionery dropped by about 17%. Nobody banned candy. You could still go get it from the aisle. They just removed it from the path of least resistance at the exact moment your willpower was at its lowest. A small change in store design created a powerful public health nudge. So we've seen this tiny principle shape economies, save lives, and change public health. But the best part is, you don't need to be a policymaker to use it. You can be the architect of your own choices, starting tonight. The core move is simple. Make the thing you want to do less of just a little bit harder. And make the thing you want to do more of just a little bit easier. You're not relying on future you to have more willpower. You're giving future you an easier environment to succeed in. In his book, The Happiness Advantage, author Sean Achor calls this the 20-second rule. If you can make a bad habit just 20 seconds harder to start, you're dramatically less likely to do it. Want to stop mindlessly scrolling? Don't just log out of social media apps. Delete them. Force yourself to re-download them or sign in through a clunky web browser every time. That extra hassle breaks the instant thumb-to-app muscle memory. To kill the one more episode reflex, take the batteries out of your remote and put them in a kitchen drawer. The desire to watch more often can't survive the 20-second walk to go get them. You're not fighting the urge head-on. You're making it die of inconvenience. The flip side is even more powerful. Make your desired habits stupidly easy. Pave a smooth, downhill path for them. Want to go for a run in the morning? Don't just set an alarm. Lay out your running shorts, shirt, socks, and shoes right by your bed. The night before. When you wake up, the decision isn't, should I go for a run? It's just putting on the clothes that are right there. Want to drink more water? Don't rely on remembering to go to the kitchen. Keep a full, beautiful water bottle right on your desk, within arm's reach. You'll find yourself sipping from it automatically. You're making the good choice the lazy choice, and the lazy choice usually wins. Ready to try it? Here's a simple 3-step plan. First, pick one, just one, autopilot behavior you want to change. Be specific, not use my phone less, but stop scrolling in bed. Second, add a 10 to 20 second speed bump. Charge your phone across the room. That's it. Third, pave the path for the alternative. Put a book you're excited to read on your nightstand. Now, let the environment do the work. Don't beat yourself up. Just notice how that little bit of friction changes your automatic choice. Before you go rearranging your whole house, a few quick notes. First, context matters. A nudge that works in one area of your life might not work in another. It's about experimenting. Second, be kind. If you're designing choices for others, like in a family or an office, be transparent. Hidden friction can feel manipulative. The goal is to make life easier, not to trick people. And finally, this is a tool for habits, not a cure for serious conditions. If you're struggling with addiction or a mental health challenge, a speed bump isn't a substitute for professional care. Please reach out and get the support you deserve. So here's the takeaway. Your environment is shaping your decisions every single second, whether you realize it or not. The path of least resistance is always calling to you. By deliberately adding a little friction to the paths you want to avoid and paving a smooth ramp for the ones you want to take, you become the architect of your own choices. You're not fighting yourself with brute force. You're gently, cleverly, and even lazily guiding yourself toward who you want to be. You don't need more willpower. You just need worse shortcuts. So tonight, pick one tiny speed bump to install in your life, and notice the difference it makes. If this idea clicked for you, stick around Headquirk for more ways to understand your amazing brain. See you next time.